Happy spring, everyone. This is Antoine Harris with Platinum Bridge Wealth Strategies, and I'm here looking over some stocks, doing a bit of analysis. And it's been a tough year for some of the major winners from 2023, 2024. Some of these big tech stocks are down quite a bit due to various reasons, the tariffs, some information coming out of China around DeepSeek and threatening companies like NVIDIA. So I'm specifically looking at NVIDIA and looking at this from a short-term perspective and realizing that with all the news on CNBC about a lot of hedge funds selling NVIDIA, mutual funds selling NVIDIA, and the theme being that, hey, maybe the run is over for NVIDIA, I wanted to give you just some longer-term perspective on some other winners that we've seen historically and how short-term volatility may not be the best benchmark for what we're going to see longer term from some of these stocks. So let me give you my thoughts. NVIDIA has been an unbelievable performer. So this is a stock chart of NVIDIA, and this run started back in October 2022. It was trading at about 11. Now, from that point, from October through today's trading at about 117, 118 or so, it's increased over 920% in less than 3 years. This is an unbelievable run that we've seen with this stock. If you invested $10,000 in NVIDIA at the bottom here in 2022, that $10,000 would be worth over $100,000 right now. So it's been a great run. Now, what we've seen recently since the beginning of the year, this stock is down about 20%. So this is the same stock. It peaked out here in January at about 148. Again, now it's at about 118, 117, depending upon when we're looking at the stocks. NVIDIA has been down about 20%. And again, it's caused a lot of people to reevaluate this company, and they're trying to decide whether the run is over. Let's take a look at another historic winner. This is Apple. And you see the trajectory of Apple over time. Now, when we look at a chart like this, I'm specifically highlighting 2018. So you see here, this stock ran up into 2018, and you see this blip right here. This is a pretty dramatic pullback actually for Apple during this time. Now, on a long-term chart like this, it looks like a kind of a nuisance and afterthought. It's not really a big deal. However, this is that same time period. This is what it looks like when you magnify that chart and give it more a short-term perspective. Apple peaked out in August 2018, and it hit the bottom here in December 2018. So over a few months, Apple fell over 35%. So when you're living through this, the people that were invested in Apple during this time, I'm sure they had quite a bit of heartburn. And they were concerned about the stock, and they were debating as to whether they should hold on to the stock or sell the stock. And I'm sure the news, CNBC and everyone were probably saying, hey, Apple, their iPhones aren't selling as well, or whatever the reason was for this decline during that time. We had some other things happening as well. We had tariffs. We had the Federal Reserve raising interest rates during this time. A lot of the same kind of themes that you're hearing now about the Fed or whether tariffs are going to impact the overall market. That was a pretty dramatic drop that investors had to sit through. However, it stopped, and it stopped actually on short order. Now, sometimes it takes longer for these companies to come back, and sometimes the companies never come back. But the point is, short-term volatility does not always portend the end of a run for a stock. In fact, it's normal, and it can be very healthy. It can offer some entry points for people. It can take some weak buyers out of a stock. When you see a drop like this, it simply warrants further analysis. It isn't in and of itself the reason to go and sell your stocks just because they're down here on a short-term basis. So this stock bottomed out again at around 37 here in 2018. And then when we look at the longer-term chart today, it's at around 212. The people that panicked sold because it was down 35%. They missed out on this longer-term appreciation over time. Now, I have no idea whether it's going to be the same case for NVIDIA. I'm not recommending that you buy NVIDIA. I'm simply stating that we need to take a deeper dive and do further analysis as to whether we want to hold a stock like that or sell it. Now, 2018 represented a pretty dramatic pullback for Apple, but we saw other drops of 20% or more several different times during that time frame. So December 2021, Apple was here at about 179. It fell over 26% within a few months. So by June 2022, it had fallen over 26%. Then it rebounded and peaked out here in August 2022, then fell over 24% by January 2023. So it peaked out here. It also peaked out here in August 2022, then fell by over 24% by January 2023. So these periods where high flying growth stocks are in favor, then they're out of favor. This is very normal. If you're inclined to have exposure to some of these high growth areas, you have to have the stomach to be able to sit through certain types of volatility. When they're in favor, they tend to be very hot. When things cool off thematically, when the environment, when the sentiment changes, these tend to be the first companies that lose value, and they tend to lose value very quickly. So again, I'm not recommending that you buy NVIDIA. I'm not recommending that you sell NVIDIA if you currently own it. I'm simply saying that the short-term volatility is not the reason in and of itself to sell a stock. And it simply raises a flag to say, okay, let's do additional analysis. And we need to consider some other fundamental aspects as to whether we want to hold on to a stock like this longer term. Now, if you're thinking about purchasing this stock, you should speak to a professional, a financial advisor that can help you work through the amount of risk that you're taking on, the long-term growth potential, and whether it fits in with your personal financial plan and is appropriate for your specific situation. If you have any questions, this is Antoine Harris with Platinum Bridge Wealth Strategies, and I'll talk to you soon.